Cyber Uncut. Discover the changing face of business, government and national security as Australia navigates the cyber revolution.
Good morning, good evening, good night, no matter what time of the day or evening it is, you are listening to the latest episode of the Cyber Uncut podcast. My name is David Hollingworth and I'm the Deputy Editor of Cyber Daily, and I'm joined by my indefatigable colleague, Daniel Croft.
Yes, hello.
Yes, hello. I thought I'd get a nice big word out of the way early on just to warm up my mouth muscles.
Yeah, very good.
So, how are you?
Good. Yeah.
We're going to get to something in a moment because you are looking a bit exhausted because I know you've been running yourself ragged on a very particular, very complex story this week.
Yeah, there was a good portion of yesterday.
Yeah,
was
you
just
wrote
on
an
this.
almost like a 1,500, 2,000 word
yeah,
feature.
something like that. And it was, there was a lot in it and there's a lot of gaps in the actual story, but we will get to that.
We will get to that. So traditionally, as we always do, we're going to open with some AI discussion. Now, this is something that I saw before you wrote about it, and I just never got to it, and you did, and it is kind of wild, and we have differing opinions on it, so it's a good one to open up with.
Yeah.
So, AI in a murder trial.
Yeah.
Walk us through it.
This is a weird one. So this is not the first time this has happened, but in an Arizona courtroom, a man who was murdered in a road rage accident has been able to address his killer through the power of AI, an AI-generated video. Now, Christopher Pelkey, 37, he was killed in a road rage accident. I believe he was shot. And his sister, during the sentencing trial, not the conviction, but... Because
this is to address the criminal, the person found guilty as part of a victim's impact statement.
Yeah,
that kind
exactly.
of thing.
Yeah. She scripted something that she believed, and it was very different from her own victim statement, believed is what her brother would have said. And it's actually quite a touching statement. He kind of goes on to say, you know, it's a shame we encountered each other that day in those circumstances. In another life, we probably could have been friends. So,
and this was said by basically a deepfake.
Pretty much, yeah.
Video of this individual who'd been dead for whoever knows how long.
Yeah, and I encourage people to go and have a look at it because it's
on Cyber Daily. You can easily find it.
Yeah, well, the picture is. The video you can find online.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very obviously AI. The AI mentions that it is an AI-generated video at the beginning, and it was not used for evidence. And I think these are all really key points.
I think that's a very key point to bring up. Yes.
To bring up, because discussion around the office was quite interesting on this.
What did the lawyers think? Because you pitched this to our sister site, Lawyers Weekly, didn't you?
I actually didn't get much feedback from them on this. Now, obviously, the main concern is...
What did the lawyers think? God, that's a question I've never asked before.
Not our lawyers, our sister publication,
Yeah.
Lawyers Weekly. Now, the biggest concern, obviously, with this is swaying the process of justice through AI, right?
And using an emotional call-out, like, oh, here's the victim speaking from beyond the grave.
Yeah.
But it wasn't used for that.
No, it was strictly not evidence, and it was more a way for the victim's family to come to terms. It was part of a grieving process, I believe, and it was approved as non-evidence by the judge. Now, my opinion is that there is actually a place for this. Reason being is that unlike most AI, it is very easy to regulate. Like anything in a courtroom, a judge can go through on a case-by-case basis, use their own discretion.
It's a controlled system.
Exactly.
If the judge doesn't like it, judge says no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just like actual evidence can end up being dismissed in court, a judge can use their discretion. Obviously, the judge can't just willy-nilly chuck evidence out, but the judge can use their discretion as to whether something like this will affect the process of justice and sentencing. The sentencing trial did lead to, I believe it was like endangerment and manslaughter. This led to a murder charge, I believe.
Yep.
But it wasn't because of this.
Yeah, the creation of the AI and what the AI said was never a part of the sentencing evidentiary process. It was just at the end to address the criminal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Chris's sister said this was to humanize him, to show the judge that, you know, this has had an impact on us. And he had an impact on the world as an individual.
Yeah.
I don't it is not that different from showing, say, a very, very complimentary clip of a man who has been murdered in a courtroom, in the sense that it just humanizes. The biggest issue there is that it's not his words.
It's not his words, and for me, this feels like a consent thing. Like, we will never know what this individual would have thought of being recreated like this, and having words put into his mouth. And I'm sure, like, I'm not questioning the motives of the family in this instance, because clearly, if they think this is going to help them, then more power to them. My issue is consent. It's not real. And it just muddies the waters between what AI can and cannot do.
Yeah.
The AI is saying this. He's not saying it.
No.
And I think it'd be very easy for an observer to look at this and take away the wrong outcome feeling. It doesn't make me feel good, is what I'm trying to say.
And that was my initial thought when I read this. I was like, oh, I don't like it there. I think it's disrespectful to create an AI video of someone who's passed away. And like you said, it's without their consent. It's not their words. But I think for the purposes it was used for in this exact instance,
you're for it.
And if it's something that's heavily regulated, it would have only made the family feel better. The guy who did it would have some sort of kind of knowing that he's not completely hated. Well, not knowing, but this kind of stance that's been taken. He can then go back, because it doesn't sound like this is a typical murder. This is a guy who killed out of rage. Not condoning what happened. Yeah. But he's not your vicious murderer in the typical sense.
Yeah.
So I think the idea that all it did was help the people in the room
move through that grief and that thing.
That pain. Yeah. And for him, probably, it sounds like regret. I think there is a place for it, and I do think it needs to be heavily checked, heavily regulated, probably in most instances not allowed.
Yeah, like, you die in an unfortunate road rage incident, and my grieving work colleague will create a deepfake of you abusing the hell out of your killer. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. It's just, it doesn't sit well with me, and in ways that I have issues actually articulating, which is a weird thing to say on a podcast where I'm trying to be articulate about something. Yeah. But it you know what? It gives me the heebie-jeebies. There's something weird about it.
I do take a little bit of solace in the fact that the judge was all for it. Now, obviously, I would assume that the judge has read the script, probably seen the video.
I would imagine the judge would absolutely have seen that video before it played in the courtroom. And if there was anything untoward about it, the judge would have gone,
No way. And then, there was a professor of law, ethics, and emerging technologies at Arizona State University, Sandra Day. Okay, let me start again. I had an issue writing this as well. Professor of Law, Ethics, and Emerging Technologies at Arizona State University, Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law, Gary Merchant. The two names messed me up.
Yeah, right. Cool. Yep.
Also concluded that this use of AI was largely harmless to the legal process. And she said, and I quote, "Victim statements like this that truly try to represent the dead victim's voice are probably the least objectionable use of AI to create false videos or statements."
I mean, they're not wrong. It's the least objectionable. But I don't. That's like damning with faint praise,
no,
right?
I know.
It's not the worst way we could use AI.
No. No, and I agree. It is definitely a flawed thing. I'm not 100% on it either.
I get the idea of it. The idea of trying to humanize that victim and to remind not just the perpetrator but the courtroom at large is this is the person who has now been excised from the world. And I don't know. It kind of creates the enormity of it.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of that happening to me.
No, I totally get that, and I'm thinking about it right.
I'm just now seeing like a whole new section in wills. Like I do not give consent for my image and voice to be deep faked post my death.
It could be a thing.
It's just
But to me, and maybe it's because I would be spiteful if I was murdered. But I think the only instance that I would want me to be created in AI is for the purpose of addressing the guy who did it. Because I would want them either to feel guilt, and trust me, if that was the case, my close family and friends would know that was my stance on it.
Yeah.
Or it would be, whatever stance I would legitimately have on it.
Yeah.
Again, that can never be guaranteed, even by your closest loved ones.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to pretend this is without some issue, but my stance on it is that there is a place for it.
And yeah, and you know, it's once again one of those really interesting use cases where the ethics of AI come into question in a really unique and interesting way, because you are making a good point that there are so many positive outcomes from this.
Yeah.
And I really can't think of too many negative other than the fact that I just don't like it.
And I that is a real point, and you're not going to be alone in that either.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will be really unsettled, creeped out.
That's it. It's just unsettling.
It is unsettling. And watching the video, and in the video you have actual footage of him explaining what he's like. Yeah. Right? You know, it might have been for a job thing, I don't know. Or like, you know, I don't know. But it almost looks like part of a documentary where he just explains who he is.
Yeah. So wow, we are really going into this way deeper than I expected actually, when we thought, this is what we'll open with something light.
I knew this would be a big discussion topic.
There's a couple of things that come to mind. Like years and years ago we saw Tupac. A recreation of Tupac, a hologram. It wasn't really a hologram, it was a rear projection thing, but on stage performing, and people were like, that's cool, but weird.
Yeah, and I agree.
And I'm thinking about the response to, it's on my mind because I'm watching the second season at the moment of Andor, Rogue One, when they deepfake two dead actors to make sure they look like Carrie Fisher and Grand Moff Tarkin, whose name escapes me because I'm terrible. Yeah. And the issues around that. I think James Earl Jones has actually said that his voice can be used in perpetuity for Darth Vader.
But he gave that consentingly.
He gave that consent.
You do hear, I don't know how true these are, I think they are, of Disney or Amazon apparently approaching staff in their publications. They're like, their, you know, movies and stuff, and saying, we want you to sign this contract that we can keep using your voice and likeness because we have this series it's gone gangbusters, and if you die... Yeah. See, that feels... Sorry, but we need to keep going.
I mean, it feels like, and I don't know, you know, with James Earl Jones, maybe towards the end of his life, he thought he could cut a good deal for his family, and I'm sure the residuals will be very, very
huge,
useful.
Yeah.
But pressuring someone who's in the prime of their career, hey, just in case, it's like... it's just all of that just weirds me out.
And I kind of have a different stance when it comes to entertainment, and it's people asking you while you're alive, hey, this is a sign that we only value you for your talent, and we need you because you've created part of our brand. Yeah. Otherwise, we don't care about you. We will go on whether you are alive or dead. That's what it sounds like to me. I remember seeing ads. I was in Heathrow, and I just landed. I'd just come from Germany, and I saw these big posters of ABBA in concert, but they were all in Tron outfits, and I thought, I hate that.
I don't like that.
I really don't like that.
Yeah. I mean, we're not trying to equate entertainment with, you know, this use case of AI and a thing, but it's just the weird usages of AI that are to take someone who was real, no longer is, and use them in some way, whether for entertainment, whether for legal, whether the emotional impact. But like, this is something we're going to be talking about for a long time.
Yeah, and for me, they are very different. I don't like the entertainment side of things because they're purely for profit, right? But in this case, this was about helping the family, helping the deceased, and not influencing the legal process, but kind of giving a perspective. And I think that's a much more personal, caring use of AI.
I will say, it undoubtedly comes from a place of good intentions.
Absolutely.
But so creepy, I think that's something we can agree on.
But unsettling, I can agree with that too.
Yeah. So quickly before we go to a break, let's talk about some more AI stuff. And this is something we're both behind.
Yes. Back to the agreeing.
Which is probably boring for our listeners. So Meta, we spoke about this last time we sat down. Meta wants to train its AI on all the content it's gathered from all its users on Facebook. And they've been slapped down hard.
Yeah, so they announced their Meta AI. I think it was a ChatGPT rival. Yeah. They announced it, I think last week or a couple of weeks ago. And they said, we're going to be even better than ChatGPT because we're going to tailor responses to you. We've already got all your information through Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp.
We're just going to train an AI on it.
Yeah,
it's fine.
So we'll already have all of that. Anyway, the EU...
Bless you.
They always do this, and I love it.
Somewhere in the office, our anti-globalists are getting very angry at us because I'm saying bless the EU.
Yeah, I literally said today, the GDPR is just such a great piece of privacy legislation. I love it.
Pretty sure Steve Cooper gnashed his teeth quietly when he said it as well.
But they have pretty much said, no, you can't do this. Privacy regulators from Belgium, France, and the Netherlands have already had issue with it. And now the NRW, Regional German Data Protection Authority, has told Meta, halt training now or we will take legal action.
Yeah.
We need it to not be one of these stupid, you can opt out systems.
Oh, no.
You're not training on European data.
Yeah.
And if one of them wants to, I think they said something like, it can't be like they opt out. I think it might have been a comment about they can opt in if they really want to.
Yeah.
But,
would you like to be part of an AI project where we use all of your data over the bajillion years you've been on Facebook? Yeah, sure, I don't mind that.
Yeah.
Cool, done. But it should not be hey, would you like to go here to opt out? No. Opting in should be the thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's always the case with these. And I love that the EU really hammers people for that.
Yeah.
Because they should be. So the NRW data protection expert Christine Steffen said that this needs to be jumped on quick because once that data is trained, once an AI is trained on that data, it is really hard to untrain it. And it also claimed, and this is quite interesting, that Meta falsely claims to care about the use of European data and that users should have a say in how their data is used. Apparently Meta lies about that.
Meta lies? I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Shocked, I tell you.
This was a really, really interesting one. I remember when we were talking about it last week, I stressed how much I disliked this idea.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad they're being kind of told off for it.
And aside, I'm absolutely going to abuse my my privileged position here as a journalist. Someone's impersonating me on Facebook.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't use my real name on Facebook. But this account has been created using my profile pic and my background banner image, and is slowly going through my friends list and inviting them to be friends.
Yeah.
I have contacted Meta about this and said, this is problematic, and they've gone, no one's breaching our community standards. And I'm like, what the hell?
I'm pretty sure impersonation is a breach of their community standards.
You would think that. And I'm mystified. So absolutely, I'm now going nuclear and using the "don't you know who I am" Meta angle. Meta can reach
that'd
out
be
to
a
me.
nice little kind of edit, op-edy, not op-edy, but kind of a unique personal little bloggy kind of thing that we could use because it's very relevant. And I've seen it happen before. I remember
it's just like. There's nothing. This person is using my image. They're pretending to be me and contacting my friends,
which can cause issue for you. Absolutely,
yeah. So the idea that we should trust Meta with the sum total of all of our conversations, and they're going to be fine with it, is I'm going to say nope.
Yeah, I look. I don't know if it's conversations. I think it may just be data on your account, which is large for a lot of people.
Which will
public.
be conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, but. No, that's not what it's for. I didn't say you could use it for that. I said when I signed up to Facebook in 2010, there was nothing in there, and I didn't read it, but I can tell you now about using my data for AI. I can promise you that.
You shall become part of the Gestalt reality.
If they got prepared really early and I'm wrong, please tell me, because that's crazy.
I guarantee you they did not. Okay, on that note, we are going to take a short break and we'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Cyber Uncut. I'm David.
I am Dan.
And all right. Okay, we spent a long time talking about AI.
Oh, yeah.
Let's spend a long time talking about DragonForce.
Oh, yeah.
I love saying DragonForce. As a D&D player, it sounds like I'm talking about a whole adventure module or a big book with dice. But no, it's a ransomware game.
It's also a band.
Is it true?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
No, so this is not the band. This is a really interesting thing that we stumbled across yesterday.
And it's been going on for a while.
Yeah.
But we've been backtracking through it, and when I say it's a whole thing, I mean it's a whole thing. Strap in for this one.
Yeah, so look, as we've kind of covered, the general consensus for these UK retailer attacks is that DragonForce is behind them.
Yes, so we spoke about this last week, right? The retailer attacks, Marks & Spencer, Co-op, and Harrods.
Yeah.
All thought to be, by some people, related to DragonForce. At least the DragonForce ransomware was used.
Yeah.
But it looks like it was probably used by an affiliate, and it's our old friend Scattered Spider.
Yeah, it's one of the two. It's really kind of hairy, but that's not where the kind of
muddy
waters end. So there's this. We stumbled across DragonForce's leak site yesterday, which has been down for a while.
It has, and interestingly, it's been down for a while and said it would be coming back on the 24th or 28th of April.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It hadn't come back.
We looked at it in May largely after these hacks. And we went on and they said something about RansomHub coming back.
Yeah.
And that they were going to be moving to their infrastructure, DragonForce's infrastructure, as part of what is their new partner program.
Called Projects.
Projects, yes.
Yeah.
Now, this program is kind of like being an affiliate, it seems, but instead of, going to DragonForce and saying, can we use your infrastructure, we'll give you a cut.
Including the leak site. So just for those who aren't aware, if I'm a ransomware-as-a-service operator, I'll have my leak site under Dave hack stuff.
Yeah.
And Dan, as a ransomware affiliate, wants to take advantage of my ransomware, my infrastructure, and my leak site. So you don't have to do anything. Whatever hacks Dan performs, we list it on Dave Hacks Things, and Dan's not even mentioned at all. It's all under the name of that ransomware as a service operator.
But then David takes a 30% cut or something like that.
Yeah, between 20 to 30% cut is how these guys operate.
Yeah.
The rest goes through to the affiliate who's actually done the work.
Yeah.
DragonForce is doing something different.
Yeah, so this new thing, it's pretty much the same thing. They take a 20% cut, but the group that does it gets to keep their branding that goes on their leak site and everything. You're pretty much just getting DragonForce's infrastructure, which would be their ransomware, their ability to talk to affiliates and victims, things like that. And then, like I said, they take a 20% cut. Now, RansomHub have not said anything about shifting. They went down in April.
Yep.
And there's a bunch of theories as to what's happened.
Yeah, so on DragonForce's blog, they're actually saying, hey, we welcome RansomHub to the fold. And they've got two Tor onion addresses, which is the dark web version of a URL, that point to a RansomHub site that says RansomHub, RIP, 3rd of March, 2025.
Yeah.
Funny thing is that those onion addresses are not the onion addresses that you and I have been using for years to track RansomHub. These are new addresses. So it's like you created a new onion address just to host your RansomHub RIP.
Yeah.
So
weirdly, right, they say the 3rd of March. After that, RansomHub, it was after that, went offline.
Yeah.
No explanation. So much so that I did not even notice it at first. This is the big dog.
Well, also,
ransomware operation
as our listeners will notice, we often talk about local hacks, and RansomHub was one of the big operators targeting Australian things. And there's not been a lot of local hacks recently because RansomHub's gone quiet.
Yeah, and so DragonForce at one point listed RansomHub on their dark web leak site.
Yeah,
took it straight back down.
As a victim of a hack.
Yeah, saying that they hacked them. So we have a bunch of, it is really confusing. We also have a RansomHub spokesperson using the moniker Coley.
Yep.
Said that they'd suffered a state-sponsored attack. This was on April 23rd, by the way. And the traitor was exposed.
Yep.
And then on the 25th, Coley posted screenshots of DragonForce's dark web leak site down, and it said technical works will be up soon. And Coley said, guess you have traitors. So there's a lot to unpack here. There's
and we are very uncertain. All we have is what a lot of security analysts have, and that is theories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you read the article, which I highly recommend you do, it is much better explained in there because there's so much. I'm forgetting details.
Look, it's an epic. And we're trying to navigate this as best as we can, whilst knowing that the people we're relying upon, the hackers, are unreliable narrators.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the thing. And there's a really common message that goes throughout my article and the general consensus on this. No honor among thieves.
Bingo.
So you don't know if any of this is true. And I described it as a puzzle piece where half the pieces are missing.
Yeah.
My conclusion literally comes to I don't know.
Yeah.
Because that's what this is.
Yeah.
So the four theories I discussed were the first one, it's a hostile takeover.
Yep.
DragonForce has gone after RansomHub and taken over their operation. Now,
I think I heard one analyst say this is basically a mergers and acquisition kind of move.
Yeah. And this is not completely unlikely. DragonForce has done this before, twice in recent months, with Momona RIP ransomware and Blacklock ransomware-as-a-service operation. And we know RansomHub, that's the big fish.
It is.
You know, what the second theory, I'm not going to go into full detail on these because there is a lot.
There is a lot, yes.
RansomHub is suffering some internal conflict. Apparently, RansomHub cut off communications with their affiliates.
Yep.
And a lot of these affiliates then went to other hacking groups, including Lockbit, according to Rapid7. They had a chat with me. That was really, really useful information.
I mean, yeah, the ransomware ecosystem is just crazy. You've got the individual operators who they're the hackers. They run their ransomware operation. That's it. But a lot of people are turning to Rust, ransomware as a service. And that means individual hackers shopping around for the best deal, the most trustworthy operation, the ones that will give them the best profit, the ones that have the best software. And so the thing about DragonForce's leak site right now, they've got a full list of the capabilities of their ransomware software.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. It's like, you know, you're buying a video game and you're looking at the minimum specs and all this. Yeah. It's exactly the same.
It is, yeah. So this is a really interesting theory. Third theory, that RansomHub, like we saw with Alpha V, has performed an exit scam.
Yes.
It's done all these major hacks, a lot of Australian hacks and everything like that. And like I said before, they've cut off communication with affiliates. They've just gone, we're going to keep this money. Affiliates can get screwed.
Yep.
Bye-bye. And DragonForce is claiming that that they're joining them. They're going to restart up RansomHub, keep that branding, and off they go.
So, absolutely. So, this could be DragonForce being entirely opportunistic.
Yeah.
Going, these guys have exited. We love their brand. They're known because branding matters in cybercrime, and are spinning this story of a hostile takeover or an acquisition or a merger to make themselves look that much bigger.
Yeah. The last theory is just that DragonForce, RansomHub joined DragonForce willingly.
They have just gone and shaken hands. And,
Okay, this works for us.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that I didn't get into the detail of in any of these theories, and it's kind of a theme throughout, is that there is obviously some sort of either rivalry or relationship between the two, and has been for years.
Are we talking a classic friends to enemies to lovers story arc? Because I love one of those.
It very well could be. Because there's a bunch of messages on these forums dating back as far as 2021 about DragonForce never speaking about RansomHub, about DragonForce being a copy version of RansomHub. I have a unique theory, which is probably completely wrong, but I like the idea. Several of these theories are true at once.
Absolutely. Yeah. These are not exclusionary.
I think that this could absolutely be infighting.
Yeah.
That led to the lack of comms.
Yeah.
Because it's maybe one team, but there could be internal fighting there. DragonForce has then gone, right, this isn't working. Screw you. We're going to take that. Yeah. And that's why this has changed.
Yeah.
Could be completely wrong, but it's just a combination of theories.
I think that's as valid as any of these. And the thing to remember is these guys all operate within the same communities. You're going to get people moving from one group to another. They all know each other. They all operate in the same forums. It's friendship group drama, basically.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is really, really like soap opera-y.
Oh my God, Becky, I can't believe you said that.
Cyber gang warfare.
Yeah.
And it's very fascinating. I highly recommend people read this one. Not just because you're reading my article, because it is genuinely interesting.
But also against the background of this, you've got the attacks on UK retailers, initially possibly attributed to DragonForce, or at least their ransomware, being used by Scattered Spider, who were involved with Alpha V back in the day, who took down MGM. And now it's pretty much considered that it was Scattered Spider that's behind the UK retailer hacks.
Yeah, I don't know if it is I don't know. It's weird.
But and this is what a lot of security analysts do say. It's Scattered Spider. I was looking at that a lot this afternoon.
Google has said it.
The weird thing about through Mandiant. The weird thing about Scattered Spider is if they are a ransomware operator, where's the data? Where is it being hosted? Because that's what normally happens. Ransomware operator steals data, they encrypt it, or they just steal it. Then they extort the victim, and the data will show up somewhere because inevitably the victim does not pay. Scattered Spider doesn't have its own dark web leak site. It doesn't exist.
Well, Scattered Spider, for explanation, is not a ransomware group. It is a hacking collective, which I believe means, at least from my understanding, it means it's a bunch of individuals with like-minded goals who are going off and doing their things.
Largely English-speaking, interestingly enough. Theories are that they're young, but technically proficient.
Well, I've heard
them quite rare in the.
I've heard quite unsophisticated. So I think the kind of understanding of Scattered Spider, because of the nature of them, is pretty mixed and pretty. It's not too thorough. Now, I've heard theories that they work closely with DragonForce, which is backed up by the fact that they use DragonForce ransomware, according to the original investigation. And it could very well mean, and this is another theory of mine, that they are Scattered Spider, or at least one of their members, has joined this new partner program. It makes sense that way that none of these retailers have shown up on the DragonForce website
or any
the
other
leak
leak site.
No, but it makes sense that they were using DragonForce ransomware, using their infrastructure. People. It could be that the reason that the DragonForce conclusion came kind of to light was through communicating with the threat actors. If they're using their comm system, there you go. There's part of their infrastructure. I have a feeling that the members of Scattered Spider that did this, if this is the case, are part of this new project's partnership that DragonForce is running.
And it's worth pointing out that Scattered Spider is the name attributed to them by security researchers.
That or Octotempest. That's the
Octo, because of the Octa hack. They actually belong to something called the community or the Com. And I only learned this today. Which again is that loose collective you're talking about, and they engage in all kinds of nefarious stuff. I almost had to put a contribution into the coin jar there for swearing, and I didn't. I saved myself. So what do we know? I don't know. We know that this is a complex situation. We know that the threat actors involved cannot be trusted. We know that crimes are being committed, possibly against innocent businesses and other hackers, and we're going to keep trying to get to the bottom of this one, aren't we?
We are, and so apologies for giving you we don't know.
We don't know.
Like I said,
no one knows. You go to anyone, they don't know. It's all supposition, and it's all based upon solid research, like what we do. But it's a weird one.
I will say quickly in that article, and this is the bit that I really want to get across. If you read nothing else, there are some really brilliant forum messages that in that article. That kind of it is super drama. It feels like high school drama. Reading texts about just this kind of relationship that you see. Messages between DragonForce, RansomHub representatives, Lockbit's there. It's very family business almost that they're all doing this. And it kind of gives a bit of a strange insight. The other thing is these messages predate RansomHub as a public operation that's been doing all this. So, anyway, I had to add that last little tidbit.
Fair enough. Now, it's interesting you mentioned Lockbit because I think we spoke about this last week. Lockbit themselves got hacked.
Yes.
And now some security analysts from Flashpoint have been able to have a look at that data. Not completely because there's a lot of it, but they've released some initial insights. And it's just a really interesting look through the mirror into how these guys operate. So I just want to go through some of the numbers here. So this is Lockbit. Just a bit of background. They got hacked, I think maybe by DragonForce. No one's sure. Like I said, this internecine stuff. But anyway, they got hacked. Their user panel, basically this is the panel that would be used by their affiliates and their admins to administrate their infrastructure and website. That got hacked. An SQL database was downloaded. And this is what has been found so far. It's crazy. A table called users that has 75 individuals, combination of Lockbit admins and affiliates to Lockbit. Their usernames are listed, plain text passwords are listed, and their messenger IDs on Tox, which is the favored messaging platform of hackers everywhere.
The plain text password thing gets me.
It's great.
These guys who encrypt victim data.
Who should know better.
And they go on about their... I remember reading that they were saying, our encryptor there's no decryptor for it until law enforcement made one.
Yeah,
Great. If it's so impenetrable, encrypt your own passwords.
Yeah, exactly. There's a list of 630 domains linked to various builds of their ransomware, because what Lockbit, like of operators, does, it will build or reconfigure its ransomware to a particular victim to take down their security, to get into their network. There are 630 of those domains, a lot of which are testing domains, so they can test the build on their test infrastructure.
Yeah.
Like, these guys are essentially criminal software developers.
Yeah.
Like, their infrastructure is really, really solid.
And you do see that. You see a lot of ransomware variants stemming from Lockbit. You see it from a lot of the really, really big ones, but you do see a lot of ransomware variants used by other groups being Lockbit based.
Yeah. A list of Monero and Bitcoin addresses, 60,000 of them. Often they'll create a wallet for a particular victim so that they can pay into that wallet, but they've got 60,000 Bitcoin addresses. It's like, that just boggles the mind. They've got a database of all of their chats with victims. There are 4,423 unique messages back and forth between them and their victims. It's And that's just some of the initial analysis that these guys have been able to do. I'd love to get a hold of that data set myself to have a look at, but yeah, it looks like it's a big one. Flashpoint have said that they're going to keep digging into it, so there's going to be more. But the scale of it's incredible, isn't it? 75 individuals, both within Lockbit and their affiliates. Yeah. You always think about ransomware gang and you think it's a couple of people around a table.
No, these guys, like, when people talk about ransomware operations or hackers generally being quite unsophisticated, Lockbit isn't that.
No. Even though they got taken down, even though they're no longer at their height. Yeah. I mean, this is still...
They're an SME.
Small to medium enterprise. You are correct. Good Lord, that's a hell of a way to put it. Just going to get quickly on this one because... we spent a lot of time talking about AI and DragonForce. Yeah. So we're going to get local. This was a local breach, not a local hack. The Australian Human Rights Commission declared a couple of days ago, or revealed a couple of days ago, that they had inadvertently breached themselves. About 600-something submissions to the Human Rights Commission from a number of different surveys, discussion papers, going back a few years, actually, had somehow found themselves searchable on Google. And at least 100 of these had been indexed by Google and found. A lot of these have attachments. A lot of these have all kinds of personal data involved. And it's just one of those big whoopses. Yeah, and you do see them. It's weirdly been a while. They're not that uncommon, but this is a big one. It could have been bigger. Like, we don't know how many people, but if it's only 600 submissions, it's probably not more than 600 people. Yeah, unlikely. Guess. Maybe a few more. There might be some other details in those submissions. But clearly must have been some misconfiguration on their back end. Yeah. Something that should have been private became public. And they came clear about it. Well, as you'd expect of a government agency, they were completely transparent. Yep. Huge mea culpas all around. They clearly listed all the data that had been compromised. But it's just... accidental. They breached themselves. And it does happen. And the problem is, right, like, you're going to see kind of a, don't worry, we're sorted, it was nothing that bad and everything like that, but there's going to be scams coming out of this. There's going to be, like, damage has been done. No matter how long this was for, damage has been done. Yeah. That's not me attacking them for it. They've obviously been transparent. They've taken accountability, and they've dealt with it relatively quickly, it sounds like. But the horse is bolted. Yeah. And closing the barn door behind isn't going to help. It's unfortunate, but they came clear, and I've got to applaud the AHRC for that. Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to take a break, and we'll be back very shortly. Welcome back to Cyber Uncut. We're almost done. This is Daniel Croft. And I'm David Hollingworth. We're from Cyber Daily. Okay, we're going to get wild. Daniel tried to explain this to me before we came up for the podcast, and I went, don't. This is hilarious already. I want to come into this cold. Yeah. Tell me about the CIA trying to recruit Chinese spies and how China's responded. So this is really interesting. This story was originally written by Robert Doherty, journalist for our colleague on Defense Connect. Yes. Defense Connect, yes. And he sent this piece to me, and I added a little bit about the Chinese response. And I will say one thing about this kind of like feud between the two nations. China can be very funny. That's a polite way of putting it. Yeah, it is a polite way of putting it.
China can be very funny.
China has a strong meme game.
They really do. They've got banter.
Yeah,
Good
bants.
Good
So
bants.
what is the CIA trying to do?
So the CIA is pretty much, they've created these ads to say to Chinese government workers, other workers, individuals over there, hey, you don't like the kind of harsh conditions living under the PRC. Sorry, my computer is
It's bonging at you.
it's binging at me. You don't like these conditions. How about you come help us out? How about you come and become a spy for us? You assist the CIA in its operations.
So they created a video.
Yeah. There's several of them. Yeah.
And were these published on, I'm fearing, YouTube?
Probably. Yeah, I believe I've got YouTube links. There are some funny details about this, including the kind of Mandarin in them being pretty poor, apparently. Apparently, like, it sounds like from an accent perspective, it's really, really rough. Yeah, so one depicts a junior government worker with access to classified information that begins questioning the harsh conditions of their daily life in the PRC and contacts the CIA.
Maybe it's the PRC that's wrong. I just watched this YouTube video somehow from behind the Great Firewall of China. Look, we can say this because James Bond is for now officially dead. He is rolling in his grave at this tradecraft.
Yeah. So, the bit that I wanted to touch on is how China has responded to this. Now, the Chinese government said this is ridiculous. We're going to be ramping up our infiltration and sabotage kind of mitigation, which is, of course, the thing you do when a country that's literally saying, hey, come help us,
and is foreshadowing, we want to hack you.
Yeah.
I mean, we've spoken this before.
Yeah.
These two countries are going hammer and tongs at each other in cyberspace.
But when you put it in headlines, of course the country's going to
Or
go...
maybe hammer and sickle is more appropriate.
Yeah, maybe. But, of course, if you put it in headlines, they're just going to prepare.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was the best way to go about it. I guess you can't really have a private ad. So the Chinese government's not happy. Chinese kind of netizens, though, had a different response. They're not happy, but they used AI to recreate that video from an American perspective. And instead of saying, come work for our intelligence agency, it said, you don't like it, you've got these rich, leaders that are, you can't afford ends meet. Right, use what you do have, your Second Amendment, and shoot your leaders, fight back.
I hate this timeline so much. You have no idea how I hate the sheer stupidity of this current point in time.
It is insane. Now, this video I remember seeing on TikTok, but it is
of course it was on TikTok.
But I struggle to find it again. So in the article, I have this guy who's analyzing both perspectives, so you can find it in that video if you wanted to go have a look. It is completely AI made, and it has Trump and I believe Hegseth and stuff in these.
We do not want anybody listening to go and shoot any member of a government anywhere. We're just saying that now, just in case.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
No.
That is not what I'm saying.
But China does.
Yeah. So this individual they depict, he looks like a classic 1950s classic American, and he lives in a disheveled apartment covered in mold, and he's struggling and everything like that.
Oh, he lives in the inner west of Sydney. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, I've lived in a few of those.
Yeah.
And it depicts him, from memory, I think he grabs a shotgun, and then it goes black, and you hear a ch-ch, and maybe a bang. But it's pretty much just saying, like, do something about it, and that's what they allude to. It's pretty much
your Second Amendment, right? No, the Second Amendment is not about shooting your. Well, actually,
that's exactly what it is.
Exactly
yeah.
what it is.
Now they don't explicitly say use your Second Amendment and shoot leaders.
Okay,
but it's very heavily alluded to.
Right.
And it is very much like how China has used AI before against the US.
But also it's so transparent. All of it is. It's just like a whole new level. Meme warfare between the CIA and the PRC.
Yeah. I mean, look, Chinese netizens have done this before. When the tariffs were announced and they were talking about moving manufacturing back to the US.
Yeah. I want the listeners to know my body language is very sad and tired right now.
Yeah, it is. But I'm quite... I think it's funny.
I can tell.
Yeah.
And it really is. It's hilarious until you think this is the Central Intelligence Agency, and this is what its tradecraft looks like now. And I just don't know what to make of it. Again, we're going to end with another note where you're amused by it, and you're like, yeah, this is cool. And I'm like, AI, I don't know why I don't like it.
I think to me, it's kind of a, if I don't laugh, I cry. But I'll say China's done this before when they did the tariffs. They're talking about moving manufacturing back to the US. They depicted a bunch of, and I'll say this, obese Americans in sweatshops doing the work.
I did see a bit of that. It's
a bit of like, we admit we have some shady practices, but isn't it comedic to imagine Americans trying to do this? But yeah, so there's this kind of AI meme feud going on, and it's funny to watch as a spectator that lives in neither country.
Okay, it's a good point. I guess we are a interested third party in whatever the hell this is. I think we might leave it there. That's one of our longer ones, actually.
It is definitely one of our longer ones, yeah.
Apologies if you've come out of this more confused than when you came in. So have we. We will try and get into the bottom of what's happening with DragonForce, whatever the meme war is with China. AI. Yeah, look, all I can say for sure is we'll be back soon with another episode of Cyber Uncut. You can find us on cyberdaily.au. You can find us on LinkedIn, all the major social media platforms except for Blue Sky. We'll get there, I promise.
Get there,
we're both in Mastodon. Sign up to our newsletter, of course, so you can get Dan and I in your email inboxes each morning. And until next week,
see you later.
Bye.